Hello my loves and welcome back to my channel. My name is Darcy and today's video is on feminine hygiene, so I'm really excited for this one, but I have some disclaimers before we get into it. My first disclaimer is that I'm probably going to use specific words like vagina, and I'm going to try my best to be as detailed and informative as possible. So again, if you're squeamish about that, might not be the best video for you. However, I think if you're someone who's not too knowledgeable about the feminine hygiene, I really recommend that you watch this because it should be super helpful for you. Again, disclaimer is I will not tolerate any disrespect. This is a very safe space, so anything that you want to comment, make sure it is respectful. So if you want to comment anything, make sure it is very respectful. If you're replying to someone's comment, make sure that is also very respectful. Anything hateful and disrespectful will be deleted right away, so don't even bother with it. Honestly, don't waste your time. I will delete it. Other than that, I'm really excited for this topic because I know this is a topic that many girls or women don't know about, and a lot of women didn't have a mother growing up, or a mother who's knowledgeable or even comfortable speaking about these things to inform them about it. Even for myself, although my mother is very much in my life, I don't think a lot of these things I learned from her. A lot of these feminine hygiene tips I know I either learned them through experience or through the internet or through my own OBGYN. I'm sure she taught me some basic stuff like, you know, you should wash down there every day, but after that, that was really all. So anything else here I didn't learn from my mother, and so it is completely okay if this is something your mother didn't get to teach you about. And honestly, that doesn't make your mother a terrible person. My mother's not a terrible person. I think herself, she wasn't too knowledgeable about this thing. So yeah, let's get right into the video. So first thing is to wash yourself down there every day, twice a day. Keeping yourself clean is probably one of the most important part of feminine hygiene because there's a lot of things happening. It's just like any other skin. There's sweat glands down there, and as women also we get discharge down there. Because it is always confined, also we are very much likely to sweat down there, so that can create a smell. So it is really important that you wash down there every day, twice a day. I do this morning and night, and sometimes I'll even do it midday. Depends on my activities and on what kind of day I'm having. Now you got to be very careful about the way you wash down there. I think there's a lot of misinformation on how you're supposed to wash it. There's people that talk about steaming and douching. There's no scientific research that's proved that steaming or douching is actually beneficial for your vagina. Matter of fact, a lot of OBGYNs and people recommend against it. So I actually wouldn't do any douching or steaming. I've actually never done any of those, thankfully. So avoid that as much as you can. When it comes to washing the lady down there, so there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to washing down there, and even the names, you know, we refer to the entire thing as the vagina, but each of them has different names. You know, there's the vaginal opening, which is the part you're not supposed to wash. To be very detailed, that is the hole. Okay, the hole. You don't need to wash that. It is self-cleaning. It has its own self-cleaning system that keeps it clean throughout the day or throughout just your entire life. So the parts that you need to clean are the skin, like the vulva, the lips of your vagina, the lips of what we call the vagina. So I'm talking the inner, outer kind of lips. So what doctors have said and what my own OBGYN have said is you can use a light soap. I recommend a Dove soap. They have the unscented, sensitive Dove soap. You can take that, wash down there, and with water, make sure the water is not too hot, make sure it's not too cold. Well, I don't think there's any issues with it being cold, but definitely make sure it is not hot because the skin down there is also very sensitive, so you don't want to scorch or burn yourself down there, right? So soap and water only. You do not need a washcloth. You do not need to exfoliate, especially in between those lips. They're very sensitive parts. No washcloth, no brush is needed. Your hands of sensitive soap and water is perfectly fine. So stick to washing the outside part of your vagina only, which contains the inner and outer lips and your clitoris, not the opening. I just want to emphasize that. So yeah, the vulva, like any other skin of your body, that needs cleaning, so do make sure you clean that part. So my next tip would be, after washing yourself, always dry down there. And let me get more detailed, you guys. Come here. Do not dry the hole. Like, do not go up there. Like, inside of that hole, like your actual vagina should not have anything going inside of it other than, you know, whatever. But yeah, you don't need to be putting napkins or towels to dry up there. Just dry the skins around the opening, your vulva, the lips. Those are what needs to be dried, not the actual opening. I should have been referring to it as opening rather than anything else, because holes just kind of sound very vulgar. Moving on, this next point I think is something that you might have heard quite often, but I don't think there is anything wrong with reminding people of it or saying it just in case anyone else doesn't know about it, and that is to always wipe front to back, especially when you're taking a number 2. The one back there, honestly, you guys, I'm not American, so I really don't know which one is number 1 and number 2 sometimes. But yeah, make sure you do not wipe back to front, because you can possibly introduce harmful bacteria from back there to the front of your vagina, and it is also a very sensitive part of your body, so you really don't want to be harming it in any way. You want to take as much care of it as you possibly can. So when peeing, you can definitely wipe front to back. Definitely, you can take like the same tissue if you want to and wipe front to back. I prefer that I use different tissues for each part, you know, so a piece of tissue dry the first part and then a piece of tissue to clean the second part. That way, you know for sure you're not cross-contaminating any parts of your body. Introducing harmful bacteria from the back to the front can cause more of a smell down there, let's make my next point. You will have a smell down there no matter what people say. I know, especially if you're a young woman coming in this day, I know men will be like, oh my god, you're supposed to smell like roses, or peaches and cream is such a common term that's used to describe it, and these terms are used to describe the scent of a vagina, but that is totally untrue. You are allowed to have a smell down there. Now, the smell shouldn't be too fishy. If you find yourself going down there and you're like, oh my god, this is awful, and it is very unusual to the scent that you usually have, make sure you do check in with your doctor, because that is not normal. However, there is always a smell down there. Do not let anyone make you embarrassed about that. Also, the smell shouldn't really be so strong that other people around you are smelling it. It's more of like, if you go down there and you smell it yourself, then you can smell something. It is not going to be smelling like roses or peaches and cream. Nothing like that. Your own doctor will tell you that. So do not let anyone make you feel embarrassed about that, especially if you are getting intimate with people and these people themselves are telling you, oh my god, you don't smell like roses or peaches and cream. Leave that person or educate that person if you can, but it is not supposed to smell like peaches and cream, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with you if it doesn't smell like roses. So my next point is learn your vagina. Learn everything down there. I'm talking about taking a mirror and looking down there, see what's down there, educate yourself on it, because there's a lot of miseducation around the vagina. It might be because it is one of the only things that belong to a woman, and you know, men have been historically the people that research these things, so they never really care to study it. So it's up to you and us to study our own bodies. So make sure you learn your vagina. Also, get familiar with your own scent. And again, I know these might be like, oh my god, this is gross, but girl, it is very important, because your vagina, you can get sick from not knowing yourself. You can get sick from not knowing your own scent because you think, oh my god, this scent is what's supposed to be there. Learn your own scent. What do you smell like? What do you usually smell like on a regular basis? And that scent might also even change throughout the days, throughout the weeks, throughout the month, especially when it comes to having your period. That might have a different scent. Before your period, you might have a different scent. After your period, you might have a different scent. During it, you might have a different scent. So it's really important to learn to know yourself. And if you're someone who really wants to know yourself because you're so confused, I recommend getting a diary for it, to be honest. Get a diary, and throughout the month, write the things that you notice about your vagina, like the scent in the first week of this month, the second week, the third week, the fourth week, because we are going through different phases each time with our periods. So learn that scent. My next recommendation about learning yourself is also through your underwears, your discharge, the smell of your underwear. And again, I know these things, we might be like, it's gross, but it's really helpful if you know yourself. That way, when things are super different, you know what's happening. You know, this is not usual. Like for discharges, for example, it is very normal to have discharge. Like, I thought, when I was growing up, I thought I was sick. I was like, oh my god, why is there something there all the time? But it is quite normal, and I think people don't talk about that, so we don't know anything about that, and so we're left confused and sometimes even embarrassed to bring it up to someone, because we don't know what's happening with our bodies and we think it's wrong. So really learn your vagina. Educate yourself about yourself, okay? So for the pennies, look at the discharge. What color are they usually or your discharge. Usually if it's like a super yellow, super red color at a random time, that means something might be wrong and it's time to get to check with your doctor. So that's why it's really important. That way, if you notice this smell, I've never smelled like this before. What is that? I've never seen this color of the discharge before. The texture, all these things, they matter. So really learn your vagina. That way no one can tell you anything, and when something is wrong, you'll know it right away. When you feel pain, a different smell, a different color, you'll know it right away. Okay, learn her like you know the back of your hands. So remember, discharge are absolutely normal. It is actually a sign that you are functioning properly down there, so do not be scared of it. But if it is a different color than you're used to, if it's a completely different texture and it seems abnormal to you, do make sure you check in with your doctor. Okay, so my next recommendation is to wear cotton underwear. I know that might be another common thing that you hear. Again, I'm just here to remind you, and again, you don't know who's watching and do not know this, so always wear a cotton underwear because it is more breathable, especially with discharge and a vagina having a scent. Polyester materials or other materials that are not cotton are more likely to hold those in because they're not breathable fabrics. That can cause even more bacteria and harm your vagina even more. So make sure you wear cotton underwear. I prefer when the whole underwear is cotton, but you can also have underwear where only the crotch is cotton. Make sure that the part that is going to touch down there is cotton. So the crotch part, make sure it is cotton. Speaking of underwear, you don't always need to wear it. I personally rarely wear them unless I'm going outside. If I'm going outside or it is during that time of the month, then I will be wearing my underwear. But for the most part, I actually don't. Once I get home and I shower, it's gone for the day. Like, and that's it. I will like be walking around my house, walking, like you can have clothes on and just not have any underwears on, and that allows your vagina to breathe, which is very important. It's not supposed to be confined all the time. Again, that is more ground for bacteria and harming your vagina. You can't do it throughout the day and you're uncomfortable with that, make sure you do it at least at nighttime. Not make sure, but it is highly recommended that you do. Also, do make sure that you're not wearing really tight items, really tight jeans, really tight underwears. Another point relating to underwear is that when you buy new underwear, make sure you wash them. Apparently people don't do that, and I'm not judging. I wash every piece of clothing I buy before I wear it because I am so paranoid. I'm like, I don't know where it was. Somebody created this. You don't know where this material came from. You don't know who touched it before you. You don't know if they've been on the floor. Like, you just don't know what's happened to it. And I'm not referring to just your underwears. I'm referring to everything. The only time I really wear a piece of clothing without washing it is if I'm in a rush. Like if I bought a really big dress for an event and it came out beautiful, I'm probably not gonna wash that because it's just a one-time thing. But if it's something I'm going to be wearing constantly, like if I just bought this shirt, I'm not wearing it before washing it because you just don't know where it's been. Also for me, I have very sensitive skin, so it's really important for me to make sure that the things that touch my skin are clean. You just don't know where it's coming from, so be sure that it's clean before you wear it. Next thing, let's talk about that time of the month because that is a very significant part of womanhood. There are a lot of feminine hygiene products out there when it comes to your menstrual cycle. There are tampons, pads, cups, rings. I myself have used so far pads and tampons. I'm planning on the cups next, but I'm a little scared because the insertion process just seems a bit extra. So I don't know if I'm looking forward to that, but I will definitely try it out. So if you're a beginner, like a beginner, you know, like you just got it, I think pads probably are the most comfortable one to go with because it's super simple. You just put it on your panties and then you go. However, as you move on, you can kind of start looking into what you prefer. A lot of feminine hygiene products apparently are also created with toxic products that are not good down there. So make sure you do your research, and if you can afford it, try to use products with safe materials like 100% cotton in there rather than anything else. Make sure your pads are unscented pads. If it's scented, that just means there's more chemicals there to affect the conditions of your lady down there. So try to make sure you use only unscented pads and tampons down there. You don't need anything scented going down there. Again, all these products that's supposed to help with our scent and make us smell better down there are usually bogus, because we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need to smell like roses. As far as changing them, I recommend changing them every 3 to 4 hours. So yeah, if you didn't know, and you're a beginner, unfortunately you'll be having this every month for the next 40 years probably, and I'm sorry to tell you that. But yeah, every 3 to 4 hours, and there are a lot of products that you can use. So just do your research and use discernment, and honestly you can try different ones just to see which one you prefer. So my next step is for my sexually active girlies. If you are, no one's judging. I don't know why we judge women on so many things. I am one of the girlies. So if you are one of the sexually active girlies, the best thing I could say is always pee. I'm trying to create an acronym for that. So pee after sex always. Pee after sex always. Pasta. It's almost like pasta. Oh my god, if we could put a T next after the S, it'd be like pasta. So pee after sex, truly always. Truly always. I don't know, pasta. Pee after sex, truly always. Always pee right after, because that helps to flush out any bacteria that might have run up there during your fun times. And a lot of those times, those bacteria can cause UTIs, and I've never had one, thankfully, and I hope I never get one, but from what I've heard, it is not a fun experience. So do make sure you pee after sex, truly always. I always also wash down there, just because, I don't know, I'm like paranoid again about bacteria and things like that. Not the opening. Really take some water just to like rinse there, especially if you're using any fun items. That's why I'm just being very restrictive with the language I'm using. I don't want people coming for me, but I want to be as detailed as I can and as helpful as I can with this video. And again, make sure you don't do any internal washing. And I know this sounds unromantic, because especially because in movies, I feel like, and that was something that happened to me too, honestly. It would be like, oh no, right after you finish, you should just like lay in your partner's arms and not move until you both fall asleep, and then you wake up in the morning with each other. And so I know that sounds unromantic, but you know what's even more unromantic? A UTI. So don't do it. Get up. Like, it is very romantic being clean. Being clean, being fresh, smelling good, being healthy, that's romantic. That's the true romance right there. So get up, clean yourself, and then get right back into their arms. Like, you really can still, it still can be romantic. And honestly, anyone you're with should be educated on our body parts. But if they aren't, you could also let them know. Like, my partners know. My partner knows. I said partners like I'm like just out there. But my partner, singular, knows. Again, not that I'm judging anyone who has plurals, okay? But my partner knows that. And so be very open about these things. This is someone you're being intimate with. I don't know who else you should be open with about the intimate parts of your body. If this person is not comfortable with it and they're making you feel uncomfortable with it, sis, they're probably not the one, okay? Probably not the one. As far as grooming tips, I'm referring mostly to hair removal processes. Now, I don't love hair removal processes. I don't love any of them. I do them, don't love them. There are so many information out there, however, on how you should do it, the proper way to do it. So I really would recommend doing that, because for me, whenever I'm like, I want the lawn mowed, I usually just go to a professional to get it done. From what I've heard, for the most part, when it comes to pubic hair, what it helps with is preventing the friction that could happen during intercourse. So that's what I've heard. As far as the research on its impact on hygiene, it's a bit mixed. Some people say it's helpful to your hygiene, and some say it's really not, or some say there's just no proof that it actually is helpful. So as far as your hair removal process, I will let that be up to you. I will never tell anyone you should be bare down there. Like, I often am not. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. And that is another thing that I think partners should be comfortable with, and my partner is comfortable with that, and you should find someone who is comfortable with that. Whether or not you're bare down there, whatever you prefer, it should be your preference, not somebody else's preference. That's how I see it, but people are different. You don't have to see it the same way, really. So as far as my tips on hair removal processes, I would say if you can afford waxing, or if you can do it yourself and in a safe way that doesn't damage your skin, I recommend that method. I would recommend that method because it lasts longer, and there is an immediate pain while you're doing it, but after that there's nothing else. I have find that when I used to do shaving, there would be like a lot of itching when the hair grows back, so I didn't like that, so I don't really do much of that. There are those powder that you can mix. There's Nair. I don't love those because they smell so they smell awfully to me, so I don't like them. And because there's such an awful chemical toxic kind of smell, my mind thinks it's toxic for my health down there, so I also don't do that. But if you are someone who's going to shave, I would recommend a fresh blade each time, or having a blade dedicated to shaving down there solely. Again, you don't want to introduce any bacteria from anywhere else in your body to this part. You want to make sure that everything that's down there belongs down there. If you can get a men's razor, make sure you are using something to lubricate down there when you're shaving also, you know, like a shaving cream or shaving oil. Do not shave down there without adding something to lubricate the skin first. That will cause a lot of terrible friction to your skin, and it will itch. It might create ingrowns, so really be careful with the hair removal process. Make sure you do a lot of research on any hair removal process that you're choosing before doing so on yourself. Anyways, I think that's all. I hope I'm not missing anything. If I am missing anything, if you are someone who's very knowledgeable about this stuff, please comment something below. Help your fellow girls, help your fellow women, help your fellow girlies and your fellow women down in the comment section. I hope that's all, and I really hope this video is helpful. If you need a part 2, please let me know. If you have other subjects, if you have other details or information you'd like around that same topic, let me know also, and I'll film another one. I'll do the research if it's not something I am knowledgeable about. And yeah, that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye. So yeah, honestly, like, leave me any comments on anything else you want to know about, like any other tips, anything else you want to know more on this subject. I'm very comfortable talking about it, and if I see you guys are also very receptive to it and comfortable to it, I'm very much open to having more conversation about this. I'm very much open to having more conversation about this. So yeah, let's continue with grooming tips, part of womanhood.